I will turn it over to Jay Tolmar. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. So as Softon just mentioned, we're going to be watching some PK Scramble. PK Scramble is one of two currently active Earthbound randomizers that are out in the world right now. You may be familiar with the other one, which is Ancient Cave. You can find PK Scramble at pkscramble.com. You can find Ancient Cave at earthbound.app. They're both very good randomizers. This is a key item randomizer. It's about what you expect from an RPG randomizer. It's very similar to FFR, which was one of its inspirations, and FF6 Worlds Collide and other randomizers like that. I don't think I have any input on when the runners start, but they both look ready to go, so we should be getting started going pretty shortly.
Yep, I'm gonna try and get our favorite thing. We did have a last minute donation for the favorite thing to change it from AFMP, which is nice and pure, to farts, which is less nice and pure.
Well, I'm
So
sure that Charging Charles is going to be very amused with changing it to farts. That is very up his sense of humor.
yes. So I am going to pop down real quick and talk to the runners while you do this for us, okay?
All right, yeah. So, as I mentioned, this is a key item randomizer. What we're going to be seeing happening is they're going to start the game. We're going to skip the intro. If you're familiar with Earthbound, normally you start out at night with a meteor falling and a bunch of busy work. But no, we're just going to start. It's daytime. You're ready to go. And then they're going to be doing a bunch of checks to find all of the items that they need to beat the game. So in PK Scramble, we typically run a thing called Race Percent, which sets the number of sanctuaries you need to finish to 4 instead of the usual 8, so you don't have to do the entire game. Which sanctuaries you end up doing will be different from seed to seed, of course, because this is a randomizer. Now, standard race settings we could go over, but there have been a couple of flag incentive changes to the race settings, and those are going to have a big impact on what we're going to be seeing tonight. So the first one of those is that we've set it to 5 sanctuaries. So the face of that is pretty simple. It's just going to be slightly longer because we have 5 sanks instead of 4. There, yep. You see, as I predicted, Charging Charles did think that farts is a very fun, coolest thing because he put an exclamation point right after it. And with that, I think hopefully we're getting going soon. And we're going to hear my entire spiel again once we get started. So more power to all of you who started out in the chat already. But of course, we'll have to explain things once it starts because that's when people show up. I see a lot of people from the PK Scramble community in the stream chat. Hello, everyone. Glad you could make it.
And it did
Yeah.
look like while we're waiting for the gate to drop and everything and our runners to get underway, we did have another $3 again from Falconic trying to slip a free ship in there to the FFR flag. So you'll see if the adjudicators of that race accept that flag or not. It's not up to me. But thank you very much for the $3 anyway.
Oh man, we should add a free ship to PK Scramble. It's $20 a kid to get on that ship. So that's worth an entire flag, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's great. We should be able to change the icon of the ship, right?
Well, that'd be very cool. Switch
Yeah.
whether it's the ship or Tessie or the
Yeah, I'd like it to be Tessie. So
oh yeah, just always Tessie, all Tessie.
I think I
Unfortunately,
think probably
cutscenes
about
are
half the community would agree with me. But
it's probably more than half. Tessie is
probably.
much beloved. I think everyone would pick the Scaraba ship music and Tessie's sprite.
Yeah. Or maybe we could have the oh man, now I feel embarrassed. Whatever the ship name from Chrono Trigger is.
You know, I knew it until you mentioned it, and then it just
No, it was
dived
on the tip
right
of my
out of
tongue. I
my
was gonna be
head.
all fancy.
um, Excelsior, Epoch. Thank you.
Epoch, yeah, that's it. That's it. I knew it was tiny, and then all I could think
Yeah,
of was the Chrono Trigger, and that's not what the ship is.
yeah. Unlike most big RPGs from this era, there is no airship or airship equivalent in Earthbound, so we can't even add that. It
Well,
is.
there kind of is. The teleport spell's kind of the airship of Earthbound.
Yeah, the teleports are how we open things up. All right, looks like we're ready to go. So everyone, prepare to hear the entire spiel again. This is Earthbound PK Scramble. It is a open world key item randomizer for Earthbound. The way this works is the runners are going to be doing checks and picking up stuff just like you'd find in a normal key item randomizer. The first check that they're doing, though, is talking to Buzz Buzz, who is a kind of check that we call a PK check. They are normally random teleport locations. In this case, we see that we got the teleport to Happy Happy Village, which normally you cannot actually teleport to. They never programmed in a teleport spot to that. Um, so some of the checks will give you random teleports, some of the checks will give you key items, and some of the checks will give you kids. So there's the three kinds of checks that we have in the game. There'll be two teleport checks and a item check heading up this mountain. I see the runaway dog had a bad palette randomization in his battle background. Oops. Um, so Earthbound, as always, has a photosensitive epilepsy warning. So please be mindful of that if you need it. So they're going to be going into Liar Exaggerate's cabin. This is an area that everyone forgets about after their first run through the game, because you never come here in a speed run. And this guy actually has a ton of dialogue. He updates what he says like at every single step of the way through to Tucson. But anyway, you go to the Mani Mani statue, and this is one of the teleports. And we got a teleport to Winters, and of course they're also going to be going up to the meteor and getting a key item there. And we're going to be figuring out like where we're going to be going with the seed from that. They still have the rest of On It to do as checks. There's another item over at Mayor Perkle after you beat the sharks, and there's another item at the library. Um, and this item is the wad of bills. Everyone likes seeing a wad of bills because it might get them into Threed. So from here, they have a branching point. Looks like Andy is going straight into On It, and I don't know what Charles is doing because that Happy Happy Village teleport and also the Winters teleport are both very reasonable places to go immediately. It looks like he's going Winters, which is actually what I would do. Winters, the bubblegum lady, is right here. She will sell you a key item for $1, and it's the tiny ruby, which is not yet useful. Andy found a Repel sandwich in a trash can, so now we have to talk about Repel sandwiches. You might be noticing that they're all running at the skip sandwich speed all the time, which makes skip sandwiches useless, so I replaced them with Repel sandwiches. Andy finds a pack of bubblegum. They have Winters, that means they can go do the Tessie cutscene, as we were talking about in the pre-show. So the repel sandwiches replace the skip sandwiches because you don't need skip sandwiches. They turn off enemy spawns for 10 seconds. That 10 seconds without enemy spawns is very important, specifically for Cave of the Pass, because all of those enemies are terrible. So it's a very good find to pick it up. It looks like both runners found that same repel sandwich, and will probably be hoarding it until the end of the game unless they find a lot of them. Yeah, so carrying on, they're going to be picking up items. What they're trying to do is go beat Gygus. To beat Gygus, you're going to need three things. First, you're going to need a way to get to Gygus. So that is the meteorite piece and access to Saturn Valley. So you have to get there and give the meteorite piece to Andonuts. You're going to need to have some number of sanctuaries completed. You get to the Ness absorb the power of the land into his heart message, which you normally get after Magicant. That tells you time to do it. Normally, we race with a 4 sanctuary requirement, but the donators have been generous enough to give us 5 sanctuaries, so we have a little bit more PK Scramble to be going through. Yeah, so you need the sanctuary requirement, which is 5, a meteorite piece, access to Sand Valley, and you're going to need Paula, because you can't beat Gygus without Paula, so Paula is required. So those are things they're going to be looking for to get through this seed. But of course, at the beginning of the seed, things are going to be pretty tightly buttoned up. You can't really get anywhere at the start. So really, they're just looking for anything to get them anywhere so that they can go do checks and find things as they go. We haven't seen any combat yet. One thing we have noticed is that both of the runners went into the big blue room in Happy Happy. That room is scaled to wherever Carpenter is, and Carpenter is scaled to somewhere after the Franklin badge. So on this kind of setting, and especially hard settings, people like to go do that because they might be able to pick up some items that'll help them get through the seed early. Andy is teleporting out of the shack fight cutscene. He picked up the police badge, not the Franklin badge, from Jeff, who is in there, not Paula. The police badge is an added key item. It replaces the plot flag that you get after you exit Giant Step that lets you fight the police. So that's going to let them go fight the police, which will let them get to Tucson. Since they already have the Wad of Bills, which is a Tucson item, that is likely something that they want to do, but there is a question of like how dangerous is it going to be to get there. So something I have not actually had time to mention yet is enemy scaling in this game and item scaling in this game work a little differently from other randomizers. The way that it works in PK Scramble is the logic is going to find some path through the game that is possible post randomization, and it is going to scale everything along that path so that it's slowly increasing in power. So the first enemies that you see along whatever path you picked will be a certain power level, and then the next enemies along whatever path that is will be a little tougher, and so on. And the items will also match that. Um, because of that, you can end up in certain situations where a certain item wasn't needed until really later, or just the logic put it off for a really long time because the logic is not a very good runner. And then those enemies could be a lot scarier than you want. So, especially at the beginning of the seed, and especially when you have extra difficulty flags, it can be a little tricky to figure out where you're starting. And I mentioned there's extra difficulty flags. One of the donations that we have added to this added 2 levels of cursed enemies to this seed. So curses are random buffs that are applied per enemy type, and those random buffs are going to be stuff that the runners have to figure out as they go. The curses are often quite rude. They're decently balanced, especially at 2 curses, but they are very rude. Sometimes you're going to get a surprise, sometimes you're going to wipe that you don't want. And especially at the beginning, those curses can kind of muddy the waters a bit when you're trying to figure out where in the logic a given enemy is. Because, like, is that enemy actually is really deep in the logic and I shouldn't be here yet? Or is that enemy just where I'm supposed to be and they got really heavily cursed? You'll see that Andy beat Frankenstein, who is in the Frank slot, and in the Frankenstein slot we have Carpenter. So this is even randomized. They don't have those. Judging Charles is clearly not feeling very comfortable right now. He does not like to do sanctuary checks until the very end of the seed if he can help it, but he does have access to. Sorry, I'm laughing because that mole just started zooming around. That is one of the options for cursed enemies. So um, Judging Charles doesn't like doing sanctuaries until the end of the scene, but if you want some extra levels, doing an early sanctuary check makes a lot of sense. So he's just going to try to clear the sanctuary, get some levels under his belt, and get moving along on the rando. All right, looks like Andy has finished that check. I did not see what item it's going to give, but we're going to get another check at it second. So once you beat the sharks, just like in vanilla, you can go talk to Mayor Perkle and he'll give you a key item. Unlike in vanilla, that item might not be the key to the shack, um, but it could be. A lot of items kind of have a little bit of a tendency to end up, especially the on-it items, have a little bit of tendency to end up not even randomized just due to how the logic works and what's needed to get the seed unlocked. But it looks like he has a Franklin badge. All right, we have access to Happy Happy Village, so we can go do the check that that belongs to. Yes, so Franklin Badge after Carpenter. Corridor in chat's mentioning that that is rude, but something that's worth knowing is that the logic, as it goes through the seed, actually pays attention to 3 things. One is just how much stuff you've done, and thus how many levels you think you might have had. So it says based on that. How many, and it also checks how many characters it thinks you should have, which affects the enemy HP scaling, and it also checks whether it thinks you have the Franklin badge. So that Carpenter will definitely have been pre-Franklin badge, so any thunder attacks that he had would have been scaled down because it doesn't expect you to have the Franklin badge to make up for it. Andy's doing the cop check. You'll see that Captain Strong was replaced with heavily armed Pokey, which does mean that Gygas' assistant is not heavily armed Pokey, so we can all start guessing who that'll be. Try to figure it out. I recommend putting off your guessing until we're in Cave of the Past, but don't forget to guess. It's a good thing to guess. All right, and looks like Charles is a little bit behind. Had a little bit of trouble with the early enemies. But he has those extra levels and he'll probably get through this fight a little quicker than Andy did. Looks like Andy also just immediately wiped to the cops, so he's going some other direction. And Charles is onto the second boss of the Frank fight. So normally it's Frank and Frankenstein, so that's 2 bosses that get randomized in there, and you get to fight them both in a row. Bosses, just like any other enemy, are randomized, so even if this is like Diamond Dog or something, you can have an easier time than just immediately fighting the second to last boss of the game immediately. Yeah, so continuing onwards, Charles having a little bit of trouble getting a foot in the door. One nice thing about that check, though, is it does remember that you've beaten the first boss, the Frank Slot boss. and then you come back in there and you can do it again, and you only have to do one boss in a row afterwards. So usually, if you wipe on the second boss, you can do it. And we've got some Tessie. If anybody has an MS Paint emote or a MS Paint Beast pun, please spam it in chat. It is a tradition. All right, Charging Charles going back, doing his second Carpenter fight. Yeah, so you can see that Carpenter is using a fizzing zip zap attack instead of a crashing boom bang attack. That is the scaled down, one of the scaled down crashing boom bangs that can be chosen. So we know it's not full strength. And Charging Charles gets through Carpenter. He's going to be able to pick up that Franklin badge as well. Let's see if he actually goes and does that check, because Andy has opted not to pick up the Franklin badge and instead go do all of this winter stuff. Doing the winter stuff early is kind of a risky play. So you notice that this cutscene is rather long, um, and the stuff that you need to do down here is probably required. So it's not like risky doing it at all. But there is a check down here that requires another key item. Stonehenge base requires that you have the eraser to do it. Nobody wants to do Stonehenge base, but really nobody wants to skip Stonehenge base because they don't have the item and then have to take the Tessie ride back to get to it a second time. So Andy here is making a risky play, assuming that it's not going to be later in the seed coming back with that. Crowder was mentioning that he could be planning on saving Death Warping. It's always a good idea to try to set up a save in Death Warp, though there are a couple of mandatory save spot overwrites in the game. One of which is coming from Tucson to Threed via the Runaway 5 bus, which is very likely to be in the logic of this seed. So that Death Warp might not actually stay stuck. Charles is trying the police fight. I didn't get a good look at it when Andy was doing it, but based on the fact that Andy died and left, I assume it was awful. It doesn't look completely unbeatable from what I see, but probably a lot. Yeah, no. If you bash your
That's
head
what
against that for a really long time, you could probably pull it off, but I would not recommend it.
I'm pretty sure Andy took mortal damage on this one. If I may, we do have a donation from. I thought for sure Andy had hit one, but from Attack Slug for $20. It says, "Let's go." Hopefully, we'll see some Attack Slug.
Hey, Attack Slug. Attack Slug is a lovely member of our community. Runs
Oh,
a
awesome!
lot of PK Scramble, and joins us in comms fairly often. Oh, and there she is in chat. Everyone say hi to Attack Slug. Um, yes, we probably see some Attack Slugs. Giant Step is a fairly common check, um, though it's also a very common check to put off until... Oh, okay, so that baddie just had a fizzing zip zap attack, which is a crashing boom bang attack. That is some evidence of cursed enemies here. So, as I mentioned, curses give random buffs to all the enemies in the game. One of the most common ones is just giving them meaner attacks than they would normally have. I also see Charles is also doing Tessie first. They must have figured out something that I missed. Because if both of them are skipping the Happy Happy Village big room check, then that must be some hot logic. All right, so Andy is opting to go straight into the Sanctuary fight. It is the first Sanctuary, so it shouldn't be too bad. But that is a bit of a risky play. If you run past that, you can get a full heal and a save, and then walk back here. It only takes about a minute. So if he dies here, he's going to... I, I assume that he took the save in Brick Road at least, but he'll have quite a walk back here. Department Store Spook is pretty mean, using some scaled down versions of his normal attacks, but they're still pretty rough. We see PSI Freeze Iota. That is the Greek letter Iota. It is the lowest level PSI because we needed something that goes below Alpha, and Andy gets it. Right, so Andy is going to not have to take that long run back, is going to get that little time save paying off, and gets his first of 5 Sanks. Attack Slugs mentioning that Department Store Spook is a jerk without Paula or Pooh. Notably, in Vanilla, you do not have Paula or Pooh. Um, but yeah, Spook actually doesn't have any freeze resistance. So if you do have a character who has freeze, then Spook is kind of a pushover. Andy just got the zombie paper phone call. After a certain number of sanctuaries, which is randomly determined, when you leave the sanctuary, you get a phone call from Apple Kids saying where the zombie paper might be. We also got to talk to Apple Kid's mouse in here, who had the key to the shack. So that is giant step access. The hint that we got from Apple Kid on the phone said that he has the zombie paper, so it's just over at his place. And we have the register your meme comment. So this is replacing the register the player name. I don't know what he is writing. Everyone knows that someone's gonna put a meme here, so I just acknowledged it and edited it to say, um,
Uh,
"Oh yes, we have a very important charity here. It is to help burning children." I think that's close enough, Andy. Close enough. I think the children are no longer on fire, thankfully.
it is it is indeed the Burned Children's Fund associated with the Medical University of South Carolina Southern.
Yes. Um, he wrote Burning Children Fund, which, if there are any
Yeah, it's
burning
fine
children,
too.
it is important to put them out. And then they will also need help from our lovely charity. Um, and on that morbid note, Andy is doing the check that I thought they should have done a while ago, which is going into this room and fighting whoever has replaced Carpenter. And this insane cultist showed off a rainbow of colors and became a runaway dog. Um, Yeah, so that is one of the curses. That is an option that it can do. The enemy that it transforms down to is always going to be something from a previous area and weaker. And we have a clumsy robot. Nobody likes a clumsy robot. And yes, the cultists are animorphs. Clumsy robot normally has the longest attack script in the game, still does. And almost the entire attack script that Clumsy Robot has is empty. And he has one good attack in that entire thing and a whole bunch of turn wasters. But it looks like he has at least Thunder mixed in there on top of his usual ones, and a Bottle Rocket. So this is very rude. We're going to find out if there's any other mean curses on Clumsy Robot. It does look pretty mean. And Andy takes a wipe. Maybe that's why they didn't do it. The items that were in there, which I did not see, would have given them a bit of a hint of how deep in scaling that room is. So if there was anything like really nice in there, then that could be a hint that maybe they should put that check off. It looks like Andy's on his way to Giant Step. Once again, people are picking up sanctuaries early, which a lot of runners don't like to do. But it is good to get early levels. And because we're playing with Curse 2, thanks to the donation incentive, they want those extra levels more than they normally would. And we also see this deep enough into the sea that the Travel Charm was replaced with a Great Charm. Sarah in chat with a clutch observation that there was a zip gun in there, which is not that deep into logic, but I don't know if they're... It's probably deeper than where they are, so it does make sense to not want to deal with Clumsy Robot. But yeah, this is a sanctuary check. Most of the sanctuaries don't get you anything except just having done a sanctuary. This one is not an exception. Oh no, the butterflies! That is one of the curses as well. It looks like it did not fool Andy today. We'll see if it fools Charging Charles when it comes his turn to do it. Also looks like we have mice turning into robots. Very dangerous. Which means that the whirling robot, I don't know if the runners know this, but all of the time that you get that curse, it is an earlier enemy that it transforms into. And here we have some slugs, which were disguised as butterflies. Looks like they're not doing too much damage, but one of them is using a googly eyes attack, which solidifies and is normally not a threat, but with 4 of them that might do it, that could be dangerous. And yeah, Andy makes a very reasonable decision to use PSI farts and not deal with that anymore, because that could have went on for a really long time. Wow, that's a lot of slugs. Um, one of the curses actually increases the quantity of an enemy that shows up in a pack, which I don't think is possible for attack slugs, but it would be funny if it did. Was that your donation, attack slug?
No, it was actually the winner of our time spinner race. Somebody had donated $80 and they allocated 40 of it for farts, I guess.
Oh, well, thank you very much for making me say PSI farts live on stream.
Is it better to say PSI farts or is it better to say sci farts? I don't even know.
I'm sure I'll be inconsistent about it. Um, there's a lot of things where people have like a specific name in their head, and you just got to make sure that you use a different name than the one they expect. Like on it, people will always argue whether it's on it or onet, and then when they're doing that, you say it's want. Um, it is spelled want. Yeah, so carrying onwards, looks like Charging Charles kind of following Andy's footsteps, just a little bit behind. Finished off that sanctuary, also didn't take the heal, and Andy's on to second sanctuary. And I didn't see if it was actually second sanctuary. Oh, I was just saying about that curse that turns an enemy into a previous one. That means that the whirling robot is earlier. Oh, wow. Plague Rat has a tornado. Um, that means that Whirling Robot is earlier in the logic, which means that the logic thinks that you went through Peaceful Rest Valley already. So this dungeon has to logically be deeper than a place they have not yet been. Charging Charles is doing a police fight again. I think that's actually a pretty heads up play. It was borderline and they got some more levels, so this is probably more doable than it was last time. Say after uh, the cop rushed in and intertwined with him for 91 damage. Um, and he's also picking up this play too, so they'll be doing the same thing now. Um, yeah, this looks like it could just be that the curses have been particularly rough, and it's going to be a hard time getting through this fight. But it would make sense. Finishing this off will give them Tucson access. If they get that, they already have the Water Bills, which will get them 3 to access, and that'll get them a second kid, finally. Second kid really does help a lot. It's twice as much damage, it's inventory space. Kids also come with checks they can do. It's very useful to get that second kid. So if they can finish off this sanctuary, they're going to have a lot easier of a time. Sanctuary check. If they finish off this check, they'll have an easier time. All right, looks like Charles is heading back into Lilliput Steps. I guess he didn't finish it the first time he did it. Um, gonna do this, pick up levels. Once again, makes sense. Usually there's not a lot of grinding in PK Scramble, but we do have those cursed enemies. I would like to say that if you would like to try PK Scramble, it is normally not this rough. We are playing with hard flags, and it looks like we got a particularly hard seed of it. Oh, and this is Sandlot Bat. That is going to be completely game-changing. Ness's weapon is one of the most important items in the game, or equipment items in the game. Like, that is the most important slot, short of Paula's pendant in the end game. And Andy's got a Pokey fight. Did get all the way through the cops. Did manage to paralyze Pokey. Barring a curse giving Pokey some sort of attack that doesn't need him to not be paralyzed. This is just a free win. Andy just has to mash for a while. So Andy will be moving on to Tucson. This is very good for him. Andy got through it. And Trudging Charles finds Trojan Sprout, which is actually, I think, a lot of people's pick for meanest boss in the game after scaling. Trojan Sprout is pretty nasty, has lots of mean attacks, has stats that scale pretty rough, is really up there with Carbon Dog and Nessa's Nightmare as potential options for worse in the game. And he's also finally going to be picking up some exit mice. Exit mice are very key to the meta, and you'll be noticing that you get to actually pick up both of the mice. Added that in because it's fast and also kind of makes the routing a little more interesting to just have those 2 mice and figure out what to do with them and pick up mice more often. All right. Um, Yeah, so Andy's going to be doing a bunch of twos and stuff. I don't actually know what order he's going to be doing it in. He has two things available right now. One of them is to go do the entire Apple Kid, um, like pay him, feed him, go get an item from him. We know that it's zombie paper. The other is to do what he's apparently chosen, which is to turn in this wad of bills. Wad of bills will get him a free ride over, and Treasure Charles's meme is a subpar scramble. Sounds like he's not too happy with his performance today. Um, yeah, so Annie's getting that free ride over to Threed. You're gonna need some way to get past all the ghosts in the tunnel. There's a couple of different ways to do it. This is the vanilla one. You can also use the bus from Fourside, which will also count if you happen to get Fourside first. You also can just get a teleport over to Threed if one of your teleports gives you that. But we've been kind of stuck in vanilla logic for a little bit here, short of that early winter's dip. All right, so we have Charles doing a couple of repeat um, repeat fights, and Andy's in a cutscene. So let's see if we can pull someone in for a chat. Hello, Andy.
Hello.
Yeah, we saw that you were in a cutscene. Was wondering how you're feeling about this seed so far.
It's kind of rough. I need equipment bad. I feel
Yeah.
naked.
Are you still on T-Ball Bat?
Yeah, man. It's
Yeah,
bad as
that's
made
rough.
it. Yeah, I don't like it. Hopefully, this shop in 3 will have something that isn't a T-ball bat.
Let's see, is that even more of a concern for you than just picking up the second kid? I feel it's been Ness only forever
It
as
was
well.
been this only forever, but yes, there is a better bat here. We have made upgrades.
That's wonderful. What did you get? You got the Mr. Baseball Bat. It's pretty good.
Considerable upgrade from a T-ball bat.
Um, so what are you planning on doing after this check?
Well, I know Applicant has the zombie paper, so that's kind of at the back of my mind at the moment until I get Fly Honey or Meteorite Piece. So, depending on what this kid is, I either might have a grudge match with Car Paint, well, the clumsy robot painter, but I have paralysis now, so in theory that shouldn't be as bad. That's literally my only check aside from Sanctuary stuff, so.
Makes sense. And I think the only sanctuary you haven't done is
Well,
Lilliput,
I,
right?
I have not done the leap put yet, and I also did not finish Giant Step because the boss
That's right,
was
you got
the
your thing.
boss.
Yes. All right, and you found a poo, so it looks like you're going to be back to one of those checks, I assume.
I'm going to wrestle that robot and teach him a lesson.
All right, well, good luck with your robot. I'm
Thank you.
gonna swap you out and ask Charles how he's doing. Hello, Trudging Charles. How are you feeling about how the seed's going so far?
Did you call me in here to mock me? It's
Um,
I the lack of offensive weapons. I just couldn't find anything better than the yo-yo, and one of those you feel like you're behind, so you start doing things like I didn't take the winter safety save in Antonet's lab, and sure enough, I just didn't have enough PP to get through that fight.
oh, I didn't realize that you'd missed one of those. I also saw that you picked up the Sandlot bat in Lilliput
In the-
Steps. It was just like
Yep.
right there, but of course nobody's going to be checking that early.
Yeah, no, and that's usually a present most people skip, but it's the point where like I need something. So now these cops are a little more tolerable. They're still hitting like a ton of bricks though. It's just I have 3 sinks open. That's a good thing, but yeah, I tell you, this is quite the bottleneck here.
Mm. Have you
Yeah,
finished all 3 of
cops.
those things that you've done, or you just haven't?
I've finished 2.
Which one haven't you done yet?
I've not done Giant Step, but that one is third in logic, and
Nice.
even like I don't know if you saw the Frankenstein switch. Like that one just killed me right on the switch. Like
Mhm.
I had
didn't
I had
notice.
enough HP, I thought, but he switched to the Frankenstein and just immediately threw the firecracker at me, and that was game over, man.
There's very rude robots in this seed. All right, well, it looks like you're about to have your heavily armed Pokey boss fight, so good luck. And
As long as he gets paralyzed, I'm going to be all right.
Yeah.
as long as he gets paralyzed.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that, and hopefully see you in Tucson soon.
No kidding, right?
Who can? And while we were doing that, it looks like Andy either wiped or finished at the carpenter check, and I did not see which item it would be. So if anybody picked it up in chat, I would love to know where we're at. Looks like he's doing another sanctuary check. So this is gonna be just a little bit more grinding. And Charles did get the paralysis off like he was talking about, which does make that boss a lot easier. UFO engine, thank you, Sarah. That is actually usable. They've gotten to Threed. Yeah, that'd be Summers. I believe they also had Tiny Ruby ages ago, so I would be chasing that down right away. That was very, very well done, Andy, figuring out which one of those butterflies is real and which one is an enemy, just based on their movement patterns. Um, yeah, it was just very nicely done. I'm impressed. All right, and Charles is getting mice. I assume he's also going to be running down to Threed and picking up all the stuff that Andy has already done. And Andy's got a Trillion Sprout fight. Like I mentioned, Trillion Sprout is mean. Just a really mean boss. Looks like Sprout started with a Psy Shield too. That or cast one at the start. So just very mean. Mean boss. So yeah, while they're in each other's footsteps, like I mentioned at the start, if you'd like to play PK Scramble, it's at pkscramble.com. It's not normally this mean. Very easily accessible randomizer. There's 3 different trackers available, and the hint men work. So if you're interested in it, there's a lot of ways to just get in and figure out what you're doing. You can just always ask the on it hint man who's in the yellow house in the north street. And they'll always give you something you can do, and if you just keep doing whatever that thing is, eventually you'll get to the end. Additionally, there is another Earthbound randomizer, which came first. That's just called Earthbound Randomizer, but its main mode is Ancient Cave. That's at earthbound.app. And Ancient Cave is a very different beast. It's a full entrance shuffle, turns the entire game into a giant maze. It's a lot harder on the brain, it's a lot more combat heavy, but it's very neat. It's very well done as well. So if you'd like a little bit more of a spicy randomizer, I would also recommend that one. So Andy's turning in this UFO engine. This is actually a added item, but this is just replacing the plot flag that you get after Monotoli, where Paula says we have to go back to Threed. I just replace it with an item, and it's just UFO engine. This is going to take you to where you would go after that plot event, which is Summers. Just skip the little Winter's visit entirely and just go straight to Summers. If you're like super familiar with Earthbound, you'll be like, wait, we skipped like several chunks of this cutscene. Trying to skip some cutscene parts. Some of them have been sped up, some of them are still very slow. Summers has a bunch of things of interest. There are 2 checks back here. One of them is the Magic Cake check, which is a PK check, aka teleport check. So they'll be probably picking up a random teleport, though they could get kind of trolled and get Starstorm, though getting Starstorm's not really that much of a troll. Everyone likes Starstorm. And there's also the museum, because they picked up the Tiny Ruby ages ago somewhere. So you have 2 different options for things to do up here. There's also a shop. So there's 2 shops in Summers, and one of them charges double but has higher level items than it's supposed to in scaling. Since Andy was talking about feeling bad about equipment this seed, I'm wondering if he's actually going to check it, though I don't think Andy ever remembers or checks incentive shops basically on principle. So I don't know if that's going to happen. And Andy is doing the museum. I always feel very clever when I remember to do this. You can get your Stoic Club phone call and go into the museum and turn in your turn your tiny ruby in the same entrance, and you'll save like 4 seconds if you do it this way instead of doing the phone call where you normally would. And we got the key to the cabin. That is going to get us a Jeff, because Jeff was in the cabin back where Paul is normally imprisoned. Jeff's very useful because he's extra inventory space, and the boogie tent will not fight you unless you have Jeff in your party. Or whoever has been put in the boogie tent slot will never fight you unless you have Jeff in your party. So it looks like Annie's going to be finishing off the checks over here and then heading on down to, well, I don't know, maybe you find something on this check, but I would assume that he's going to go pick up Jeff immediately. I would pick up Jeff immediately. Note that I did not mention Jeff's combat abilities, and the reason is good. Sometimes you find BBRs, and sometimes they're useful, but usually Jeff is kind of weaker than the others. Sorry, Jeff. And Andy mashed out of that so fast, I did not see it. It's Dalam. I could also see him doing Dalam first. Dalam has a kid check as well. So yeah, we went from 1 kid all seed to 4 kids almost immediately, which is how it goes sometimes. Also, Charging Charles went and checked the Paula hint, where so if you go to Paula's house and then leave, that guy shows up and tells you where Paula is, and he said she ran away to become a monk. So it's on Andy's side that Pokey just glitched through a bunch of walls and then fought him. That's because he teleported out of that plot trigger, and that's just what happens if you teleport out of that plot trigger. You can do it in vanilla, but you need to use a bunch of glitches to make it happen. So we got this cultist fight, which it looks like he's auto-fighting it. There's a lot of cultists. Even though they're very weak, I might want to just use an AoE on this, especially since they turn into dogs. They're just going to see that over and over again. Charging Charles is checking the free shop, or the pay what you want shop. If you do not pay, then a random boss, who is Captain Strong today, will fight you for not paying. But this is super early scaling, so not a threat at all. So you load it up on brain food lunches. Kind of makes sense to hold that off until you have access to that second kid and second inventory. Brain food lunches and poo also go together, like brain food lunches and poo. All right, Andy found that bass. Almost said bass. Found that Jeff. Jeff also starts with a key item, which is in the slot that would normally be the bad key machine that he has by the time he joins you. But I did not see what Jeff's item was today, so maybe we'll notice it next time. Andy's also going to go find Paula, because she did run away to become a monk, as we all know. That's going to get us our final kid. Unlike Pooh and Jeff, Paula does not start with an item, because she does not in vanilla. But Paula will also open up the Everdread check, and also you just need Paula. Thank you, Sarah. Alright, Jeff has the carrot key. That is 4 Sanks, so we are almost ready to go. We just need the meteorite piece and a 5th Sank, and to finish off the Apple Kid check that gets you the zombie paper so you can go to Saturn Valley. Alright, looks like Charging Charles is really taking Clumsy Robot seriously, doing the paralysis and the thunder to peel off the shield and freeze. Just taking no chances on that. And then Clumsy Robot fell over and bumped his off switch. We got that. Alright, so the pink cloud is where Andy's going next. This will be another sanctuary check. 4 out of 5, probably the 4th one. What even are Tengus? They're very creepy looking. Yeah, now that he has all 4 kids, that really should help a lot. The very early game and the very end game tend to be the... is he dropping a Viper? How dare you, Andy? The very early and end game tend to be the hardest parts in any sort of increased difficulty seed, such as this one. He's actually opting to use a Repel Sandwich. I have not been counting both of the runners' Repel Sandwiches, but I would assume that he has enough. And it's just like, nah, this Sanctuary is really annoying. I don't want to deal with it. Wow, that did not look like it should be red. That's very rude. That's very rude. That is a rude enemy pack. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that double enemies is one of the curse options, and I think that's what happened here. Um, Thankfully, they're not being that bad. They're using PSI, Sparks, Delta, and Zeta, which are just deep in the pile of weird scaled down Thunder options. Um, yeah, so it's only doing 20 to 40 damage per hit, but there's a lot of them, and they do not seem to be letting the team run away. See, oh, yes, we are going to be using PSI farts to get our way out of this fight. It is not enough. Maybe more farts. I think they might actually have, like, speed scaled up or something, because I saw Andy try to run away several times, and it did not work. Wow. Alright, Charles doing the stuff in Summers, just kind of playing catch-up at this point. He's a couple minutes behind, I would say. I think he has one more Sanctuary than Andy, but I'm really bad at keeping track of this. And he just picked up a luck capsule and threw it on the ground, which is actually correct. The luck stat is very nearly useless. Wow, that's another very rude enemy pack. Yep, that's...
Oof.
You don't need that. Were you trying to get a word in edgewise soften
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
It looked ugly. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, it's... I think the Tengus also had doubled enemies, so we just have two different enemies that are doubled. And yeah, that's a lot. I also see that Jeff is down and not being revived. So yeah, the luck stat protects against a handful of status attacks, almost all of which are like meaningless statuses, like can't concentrate. And the only dangerous one in the entire game is Diamond Dog's Bit Down Heart Attack is protected against by luck. So if you want that extra 1 in 80 chance of not getting hit by that, then you can take a luck capsule. But a 1 in 80 chance of protecting yourself from a very specific attack is not worth the menu time, so people throw those on the ground. Yeah, it looks like Andy's probably going to be taking a wipe here, or running away, or something. I don't know if he's going to finish off the Sank or what, because this is gross. Tengus have a poison attack and a sleep attack. Conducting Menaces have Flash and a bunch of Thunders, and I don't know if they have any room in their scripts to have that upgraded by curses, but if they do, it could be worse. Yeah, assuming that Charging Charles does not take this fight, this is giving him some time to catch up, and it looks like he's going to be picking up Paula first before picking up Jeff. Oh, that's just a bad time. I've seen worse, but that's a bad time. The single worst enemy pack I've ever seen in this randomizer was with a Shuffle Enemies seed. I think it was also cursed. The enemy pack was Loaded Dice and Insane Cultists, which both called for help for each other. So eventually you should just run away from that. Your run chances go up over time, so you always can run, unless you can't run. Yeah, that's rough. And Annie's just opting to go straight into this fight. It is Mondo Mole, so that's pretty lucky. Because Mondo Mole's not that bad, but he's back to sleep. I believe that's is that a vanilla Mondo Mole thing? I don't even remember Mondo Mole's vanilla script. If not, then it's probably like defense down or something, and the curse has just decided, oh, he knows psychic stuff, that means he can learn hypnosis. So we're gonna have a lot of Sleepy Andy. But it looks like Mondo Mole's not doing any damage, so eventually, on the turns where Andy is allowed to move, he might make some progress. It does look like one of those Mondo Mole attacks was a smash for like 70s, so... okay, Mondo Mole is out of PP, so problem solved. Wow, what an annoying cave. He's hoping that Charging Charles does not run into quite so much annoying crap down there. And Charles now has all kids, is checking their inventories, figuring out where he's going. He does have options. He can go different places than what Andy did. There is the Everdread check and the Boogie Tent check that are still open and have not been done. Yeah, so getting a Sanctuary is a full heal. Also, they have access to Dalam, which is a very fast full revive. And it looks like Everdread today is Frank. So Frank jumps off the roof and fights. Of all of the bosses in the game that just attack and don't have any special stuff, Frank is the scariest. Just because Frank's attack stat relative to his level is the highest there is. But all of those bosses are just not that scary in general. So this should be a pretty easy fight for Judging Charles. Yeah, Frank's not used to being frozen, so it gets through that. This is going to get him two things. It's going to get him a item out of Frank in a second. It's also going to give him access to a couple of the Berglund Park stores, which for the randomizer I've locked behind Average so they end up scaled somewhere different than the other ones. You find some OK pendants. OK pendants are the one equipment item that is added for randomizer purposes. They give weak elemental resistance in all stats. They are added so that Force Thank Gaius is doable, because normally you just don't find any pendants until really late in the game, and that makes it doable. But I don't really know if they're the optimal choice in 5 Sank, which is what we're playing today. One of the critical flags to know about when you're playing race percent is safe flash beta, which makes it so that flash beta can't instantly kill you. In 4 Sank, pardon me, in 4 Sank, Gygus will be scaled down to have a flash beta equivalent in his flash attack. And making that a safe flash means that being stuck there for 9 rounds with someone who can use that attack isn't going to instantly wipe you if you get super unlucky. In 5 Sank, I don't know if it's possible that Gygus can have Flash Gamma like in vanilla, but if you can, then that has a 1 in 4 chance of instantly killing you. You really need that flash protection. Andy has found a Carbon Dog. Carbon Dog is about as scary as you expect. Just like in vanilla, Carbon Dog is one of the nastier bosses. If you get super, super early Carbon Dog, it's actually pretty good, just because he doesn't have that much health at that point. And even though it's one of the meaner early bosses, it's much better to have him in the beginning than later. So you're always kind of happy to see that, like, boss 1 is Carbon Dog, so you don't have him later. This is late in the seed, so we have full strength Carbon Dog, Diamond Dog. Carbon Dog has, I think, 1/4 as much HP as Diamond Dog. So if Carbon Dog goes down with a little bit of effort, then Diamond Dog's going to have a lot of effort. You really want that Carbon Dog portion to be pretty quick. Andy thinks the seed is cursed. I kind of agree. I believe Andy's the one who rolled this, so we can all blame him, because that's how it works. I also saw that Andy picked up the teleport from the Pooh's Master Trek, but I have no idea what it was. Probably something useless. So one of the things that happens with the teleport checks is as you get later and later into the seed, oh, there's the meteorite piece. That was required content. So between what the 2 of the runners have done, we know how to beat this seed. It is a vanilla-esque stay in mostly the first 3 towns kind of seed. So what they're going to need to do to finish this one out is Andy's going to have to go talk to Applekin and get the zombie vapor. He's also going to have to clear out Frank and get the fly honey. That's going to get him a route to Saturn Valley plus a way into Milky Well. Milky Well will be the 5th sanctuary. So it's quite a long trip. There's 3 bosses on the way there, so we've got quite a bit of Scramble left. Doing the full walk all the way up to Milky Well is surprisingly long. There's just a lot of content between those 2 spots. So we've got a bit of that to go. Of course, Andy does not yet know that this guy has the fly honey, but once he finishes off this check, he will know that that is the way to get to the end of the seed. Meanwhile, Trusting Charles does not yet know where the meteorite piece is, but it is in Boogie Tent. So whenever he hits that, I believe he'll also know everything he needs to know. And I don't think either of them have done Apple Kid yet, but we know that because of a hint ages ago that he has the zombie paper. Yeah, so let's see, how far into the seed are we? So a typical 4 sanctuary seed, we'd actually be getting ready to finish up with runners as fast. A particularly rude 4 sank no curses seed is gonna run like an hour 10, and then like a typical one if you're these two who are like two of the fast. These are two of the top 4 runners. Um, and Trudging Trials is probably the fastest. Andy, I don't even know where Andy is in that ranking. Anyway, these are some of the fastest runners, so they're going to be running about 1 hour seeds. I'm actually not sure how much longer this is going to take. See, they've got. Yeah, probably another 25 minutes worth of scrambling to go. Yeah, so looks like Judging Charles is doing the zombie paper turn in, and he's picking up old sanctuaries. We're just finishing up the things that they have left over. Um, so we're gonna have a series of bosses on our way up to do Milky Well. So China Charles is doing the zombie paper check, which means walking up here, going through this tunnel. This tunnel is really, like, in my mind, one of the last really mean fights or areas in vanilla before the game starts giving you a whole lot more experience and things get easier again. Um, so yeah, once he gets through here, there'll be another boss fight. He'll have the option of going straight to Belch Base, which is very, very, very risky, or going to Saturn Valley and picking up a teleport and a save. Um, then he has to get through Belch Base, um, beat the boss there, and then go up to Milky Well, finish off that sanctuary, get his sanctuary requirement, then go back around down to the phase distorter, turn on the meteor piece, walk to Gaikus. I just saw that Charging Charles picked up a Repel Sandwich DX, which I think Andy will also probably find given where it was. So they have plenty of Repel Sandwiches to get through Cave of the Past. Um, so really, we're just looking at these last 3 dungeons, and then kind of a breezy walk through the worst dungeon in the game, and then Gygus. And Cursed Gygus is very much a treat. So I don't really know how bad it'll be.
Do we get double Gygas?
Um, so double bosses is an option. I don't think we've seen any double bosses today. Um, if you get double bosses, they have half health, thankfully.
Oh,
Guy,
thankfully.
um, Gygus is not eligible for a lot of the things because Gygus has so much special stuff going on. But the prayer phase of Gygus has special curses that are just for Gygus. Um, so we will see one or two very special curses just for Gygus, depending on whether it rolls special curses or one of the handful of regular ones that Gygus is qualified for. Charles finally finds a bazooka, making Donkey, aka Jeff, useful. Of course, you'd prefer the heavy bazooka, but you're not likely to find that on anything short of like a 6 sank. And Charging Charles is not going to Saturn Valley. So I mentioned this earlier when I was rambling about the remaining stuff. That cave that he could go to on the right, if you go through that cave and get to Saturn Valley, you get the teleport to Saturn Valley. If you don't, and you just go to Grapefruit Falls, as he just did, though I guess in this case it's kind of a Lime Falls or Mountain Dew Falls, then it's a lot faster. You don't have to walk through that cave twice. But if he dies anywhere in here, he's going to have to walk all the way through the Threed Zombie Cave and Grapefruit Falls again. So he's got to be careful. It looks like he is using repel sandwiches. There's a lot of enemies in here that don't despawn because they're actually secretly NPCs in the game's code. But he will get past all the foppies at least. Where did Andy find a Tengu? Must have been enemy turning into another enemy due to curses.
Seem to be collecting the Tengus.
Yeah, it's not good. Not a fan of the Tengu. It's a very creepy looking thing. Alright, so Charging Charles is going to try to despawn this. I think he's probably going to try to stutter past this. This is an NPC. You can't actually despawn him, but you can do what Charging Charles just did. That is a real butterfly in there, because there are no spawns in this room. Very clutch to have a butterfly in here, and this is going to be one of the two Starmen, but I don't know which until it goes up on screen. And it's Starman Deluxe. I was kind of hoping it'd be Junior, not just because I'm cruel, but because I'd like to demonstrate that Starman Junior is actually really, really mean in Big A Scramble. It turns out that if you don't have Buzz Buzz just winning the fight for you, that is actually a tough boss. Did Charging Charles actually just pull ahead? And I didn't even realize. Does he have like extra sanks or something that he has to do? It's a good question that I don't know the answer to because I'm asking myself. So Andy is behind. He's still in the zombie tunnel, which does not have a proper name, so I never know what to call it. And Charging Charles is all the way up to Belch Base. It doesn't look like he's going to wipe either, so his risky play is not going to be punished. This is a very, very big check. There's actually a ton of stuff that is unlocked by beating this boss. It unlocks both of the tunnels out of Threed, gets rid of all of those ghosts. You'll see some ghosts in here trying to remind you of that because that is the most commonly forgotten check in the game. Even though there's literally a ghost blocking you and telling you about it, people still forget it. I tried. This Saturn gives you a random teleport. Oh, but today it was Starstorm, so very lucky of Charging Charles to bother to take that little second to talk because he got a Starstorm, not a useless teleport. He's also picking up items off of that Saturn in there. He gives you 3 items, so sometimes you get something good, and you usually get some garbage as well. And true to form, he got that mix of useful and garbage. Looks like Charles is... Oh, he didn't get his meteorite piece. That's the thing that he's behind on. So if you do this check without turning in the meteor, then you can get a hint out of Andonuts. In this case, he said that rocks like that like to stay warm. Maybe he's in some sort of tent. And as we know, that was in Boogie Tent. So Charging Charles has 2 things left to do. He has to go back and do the Boogie Tent check, and he has to finish off the sanctuary up here. Andy, meanwhile, has to finish this base and that sanctuary, so they are actually very close. Unless one of them has sanctuaries they haven't done that I forgot about. There is a photo trigger there, so you can see that Charging Charles remembered to hug the left side of the springs. I guess it's the right side of the springs, left side of the area he's walking in. That lets you skip the trigger, but the real trick is to remember it again as you walk out, because that skip does not help unless you also remember it on the way out. Most of the photo triggers in this game have been removed thanks to the randomizer, but the way that I did that was just setting all of the flags for have you gotten this photo to true at the start of the game, and any photos that somehow still trigger after that for whatever reason, they are still there. So there's I think like 4 of them are still left for whatever reason. And it's Starman Jr. I was hoping to see this guy. So Starman Jr., as you may remember, is the very first boss in the game. Normally, he just spams fire and freeze, and Buzz Buzz deals with it for you. But we do not have Buzz Buzz, so spamming fire and freeze is actually kind of scary. Additionally, Starman Jr. has a lot of health, and for whatever reason, it has really high elemental resistances. So it's actually a pretty tough boss. There are a couple of things that deal with him very well, though. If you have any sort of non-elemental damage, especially if you have bottle rockets, then it's not such a big deal. So Charging Charles does have Starstorm, which will be helpful. It does not look like he has bottle rockets, or if he did, then Donkey is unconscious anyway, so he cannot use them. Really, the only thing this boss is particularly weak to, though, is bottle rockets, because he has a very low speed stat. And we are at 5th Sank. Yeah, so someone donated so that we had to deal with 5th Sank, and it did give us Starman Jr. So thank you for donating so that we can have to fight Starman Jr. As I mentioned before, the fact that we're doing 5th Sank does not just mean that we have to fight this boss. It also means that Gygas will be scaled a little bit deeper into the seed. Because Gygas is scaled a little bit deeper, Gygas will be a little bit meaner. So the Gygas fight is not as guaranteed as it normally is. And Gygas is already kind of dicey, especially with a couple of curses. And Andy is through Starman Deluxe. It's actually shaping up to be very close. If Charging Charles gets through this fight, which I assume he will, despite half his kids being dead, like these are very good runners who have good crisis management. I assume he'll find a way. Wow, Rocket miss on Starman Jr. is very unlikely. As I mentioned, Starman Jr. is slow, so you should not see any sort of misses on Rockin' on that fight. Yeah, so if Charging Charles pulls this out, then he is only behind by the Boogie Tent, and Andy has to do this entire fight, which looks like a tough fight. Also, I think I just saw Starman Jr. throw a bomb. There you go. And that is it. Charging Charles gets through it. So Andy just has this fight left, and Charging Charles just has Boogie Tent left. And Boogie Tent is Carbon Dog. So, slight edge Andy, I think. I believe that also means that we have seen all of the bosses that we are going to see, which means that we can start getting our guesses in for who's Gygas' assistant. We've already seen Heavily Armed Pokey, so it cannot be him. Who is Gygas' number 2? See a Shroom in chat. I feel like it's Shroom.
Is the third strongest rat still out there?
There is no third strongest mole. It could be the third strongest mole.
I'm guessing third strongest mole.
There we go. We've got a third strongest mole. We've got a Shroom. We've got an Everdread. Except it was spelled Everdreezy for some reason. Who else is still up there? There's still a Kraken available. There's Guardian General. I bet the runners would love to see Guardian General. Who else is missing? We have seen Trillion Sprout. Yeah, I'm feeling like it's Shroom. But mostly just because I always guess Frank and then Shroom. That's been taken. Trying to remember all the bosses that we haven't done. We have not seen Electrospectre. That's a rude one. We've not seen Thunder and Storm. Thunder and Storm's not too bad. Have we seen Electrospectre? Oh, that's someone's question. Mini Barf and full-size Barf and Belch. We haven't seen any slimy pile of any sort. So those are all options. We haven't seen Ness's Nightmare, but unless Andy was cheeky and turned off the Save Bosses flag, it cannot be Ness's Nightmare because that would just be too rude. Looks like Andy's having a little bit more trouble with the Starman Jr. Can he clutch it out? He's remembering that the Hand-Aid is a full heal. That's one of the things that's kind of funny going into this rando. A lot of people have mentally filed the Hand-Aid into the useless items bucket because they never used it in vanilla. But the reason you don't use it in vanilla is because you only get one, and it's too precious to use. But it is a full heal. It's a good item. You should use it. Unless you're trying to get like 100% items save in Scramble for some reason. And Andy does manage to clutch it out at the last second. Is that a Mondo Mole? I have no idea where Charging Charles is. I looked away and he's fighting Mondomol. I don't even remember where Mondomol is. Is this the sanctuary he hadn't done? I guess we'll find out now that he fades out. Oh, it's Pink Cloud. Okay. Which is actually kind of a minty lime cloud. Unfortunately, it is not renamed based on whatever palette Rando has done. That would be way too much effort. Back when repel sandwiches were more common, it actually used to be common to use one leaving Milky Well, just because that area is so full of enemies. You saw that Andy had to like kind of sneak his way through that tight little corridor, even though they were trying to run away from him. But now you can only find them in chests. All right, this is the shop that only opens up after you've done all your sanctuaries. He found that big league bat, which is always good. He's got a bunch of Horn of Lives, and he is respecting the boss by stocking up on Horns of Life. The things that you want for the Gygas fight are, if you have the Franklin badge, it goes on Paula. You want to put some sort of elemental resistance pendant on Paula. If you have any sort of attack shuffle, that's less certain. Physical defense does not matter at all unless you have attack shuffle on, which it is not for this seed. And you want to buy a bunch of revive items. It's nice to spread them between the kids because you don't know which one's going to eat it. It looks like he's buying all his Horns of Life with all of his money because he is expecting to have a rough time, which is very fair. And I believe that's final prep for Andy. He is picking up this guy's random stuff. Sudden Guts Pill is actually sometimes used by, like, literally one of the speedrunners, but not too commonly used by anyone else. And doing a little bit more item prep, it looks like he's thinking through this pretty carefully. I saw a bag of Dragonite going onto Proto, aka Jeff's items. That's a good move. That'll give Jeff something to do in Phase 2 Gygas. And Phase 2 Gygas, of course, is basically immune to bottle rockets. And he's apparently not too confident. I think it's because he doesn't have any pendants. Because he is still picking up random stuff. Rock Candy on Bass, unexpectedly. The Rock Candy, I think it was a Vitality, so it's not actually going to do anything until a level up, which he's unlikely to get at this point. Learns how to teleport to Threed. That's useless. I already know it. Repel DX there. Also very useful final stuff. And we have the robot cutscene. Flashing lights warning, and also a lot of flashing lights warning for the rest of the thing. I see chat being like, Tolmar, you're okay, and I have no idea why.
We heard your whatever, like, water bottle.
Oh, yeah, I have a metal water bottle. It knocked it over.
Came through pretty loudly, so.
Oh, I'm sorry if I spooked anyone.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
Yeah, something about commentating just makes me go through a lot of water.
Oh, yeah, I have no idea why.
Yeah, I ran out of honey tea already, so I was into the water. All right, so Andy is using those repel sandwiches that he's been hoarding all game because the enemies in this area are just horrible, and you want to skip them. And in fact, this is actually kind of why repel sandwiches exist. Is this and fire springs are just too much, so it's nice to be able to skip them.
Yeah, I mean, this walk normally. Well, plus, like, you sped up the robots, too, so.
Oh, yeah. I try to speed up as
Normally
many
you're
cutscenes as I
trudging
can.
through here.
Well, they're sped up because it's just you always are at skip sandwich speed. And then
Right.
the robotomy cutscene is also 4x speed because you only do one of them. Like, it's bulk. The questions about tea in chat. It is hot water and orange blossom water and granulated honey. Is what I drink when I'm streaming, and basically only when I'm commentating streams because it's just good for the throat. All right, and it is Belch. Did anybody have Belch on their assistant guesses? I don't think I saw one. All right, well, that means, just like the Apple of Enlightenment, we could not predict this. Belch is a nice one to find here. There's going to be, like, a loud, obnoxious noise out of Belch, because literally that attack that just ran doesn't sound right if you don't have Belch's music playing. But other than that, really no threat from this guy. Doesn't have a PSI shield or anything you're particularly worried about, just nauseated bass, and we got it. We're on to phase 2, Gygus. So Gygus is actually 4 phases. This is phase 2. And the way that this one works is basically a damage race. You want to try to damage Gygus before he does too much scary stuff, because he has a lot of big AoE attacks that are hard to deal with. And that was a flash. All of those, so there's 3 different can't grasp the form of Gygus' attacks. One of them is a flash. In vanilla, it's actually flash gamma. Everyone who tells you it's flash omega is incorrect. There's also a freeze alpha, but it hits everyone, and a thunder beta. All of those will be scaled based on the rando. I expect we'll probably be seeing thunder beta, and I don't know which flash, and I don't know which freeze. Additionally, Gygus has a turn waster attack, which the curses love to replace turn wasters with mean stuff. So we have to keep an eye out for Gygus having something mean instead of a can't grasp the form of the attack style thing.
So are you trying to tell me that the assistant's belch is worse than his bite?
Well, in phase 1 perhaps, but we're going to be on to phase 4 very shortly, and we have something special for you coming up on there. So this is phase 3. Phase 3 is literally just this round. I like to mention that it is a separate phase, though, because Brain Shock actually... So Brain Shock is very useful to apply to Gygus. Fruit Kids, pray for Proto friends. Brain Shock is very, very good against Gygus. It basically decreases his offense by half, and that is good. But it heals as you go into phase 4. And we're in phase 4 now, so that no longer matters. Phase 4 is where the special Gygus curses happen, so keep an eye out. You'll know it when you see it. Rock's family played for Rock and his friends. And the dog is not glitched. What a blessed run, I say, after the beginning of this run was cursed. Hey, it's Belch. Looks like you losers are having too easy of a time. That means I, Belch, will have to help. And he went straight for a roll with a Diamond Ray. So that's one of the rude ones. Just diamondizes Paula. Yeah. So there will be up to the number of curses times that happens, and he uses some special custom attack just for this fight. We'll probably get another one, but if we don't, it means that Gygus got a extra attack curse instead. And it looks like Charlie Charles is right.
Exit mice are a blessing.
Exit mice are very blessed. So are swamp monkeys. We haven't seen them this seed, though. Would have liked to see some swamp monkeys. One, please.
Are the swamp monkeys related to the bubble monkeys?
Are they related to the desert monkeys? Are any monkeys related? Who knows?
I don't know. I just thought maybe that the programmers laid, hints in the code about the canon of the game, of course, because that's how Super Nintendo Assembly works.
Yeah, absolutely. The only hint that I've really uncovered in the code, well, there's actually a couple of things I found. One is they actually check which kid... Oh, we're on to the end of the phase. It looks like we did not get any special curses. So Andy just has 2 prayers left, and then he'll finish it. It looks like he's going to make it. And it also looks like Sarah's estimate of 115 is going to be exactly on... Go figure. As one of our top 4 scramblers in chat mentioned this, so of course she's right. And that is time for... Well, that's traditional time for Andy. We end on the U1 screen, which will be coming up in just a second. Well, in just like a minute. Yeah, so timing on Pika Scramble is slightly different from traditional Earthbound speedruns, just because there's... Go Burning Children's Fun, by the way. There's different flag settings where you wouldn't end here. We wanted to make it consistent. So there'll be a suspicious U1 announcement. Looks like Charging Charles took a death on Gygas, which is unfortunate. But since Andy did not, and Charles was like 2 rounds behind, it does not mean that he lost because of it or anything. He just had a bad time.
Yeah, this is the rip glitch.
Yeah, this is also the final flashing lights warning of the game. I will be making this a little better soon. We had a submission from someone who provided a less flashy version of this graphic, which will be nice. But it'll still destroy your bitrate, don't worry.
Okay.
It's very important that it destroys your bitrate. It's a feature. And you won! All right, so that is time for Andy.
Try drag Andy up here so we can
Yes,
speak a little
please.
bit. There we go.
Congratulations, Andy. You are first.
Thank you.
Yeah, how do you feel about the seed?
It was haunted.
It's haunted. I feel like it got a lot better after you started picking up other kids, but the start of this
Yeah,
was
but that
terrible.
pink cloud was haunted.
The pink cloud was mean.
And you're also
Escape.
joined by Charging Charles. Hey.
Hey,
myself.
Charging Charles. Welcome in. You were 1 round behind Andy in the Gygas fight, and then you took a.
Yeah, the coughing fire was not what I needed round 1 there when I was.
Oh, is that what did it? Was
Yeah, I
Gygas
had some
up?
heals set, but then Paula's prayer went off and it didn't matter. I know
I
we're
was
running
wondering-
over, so yeah, we can wrap this one up quicker. Thanks for whoever
Thanks for
started
having us.
us for ruining it with the 2 curses. But Andy, well done.
Well,
You
GG,
were the
man.
better man than me today.
GG. Game is hard.
Well done,
Also
Andy.
cursed.
Thanks for having us. Go play PK Scramble, and also go watch the rest of this marathon and do some donations. It's a good cause.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for running for us. It's been great. I'm going to go ahead and mention that we are raising money here for the Burn Children's Fund that is affiliated with the Medical University of South Carolina. Their mission is to ease the recovery process for pediatric burn patients and their families through supplies and training for the highest quality burn care, direct family support, and education.